we took a Reddit poll this week and are excited to dive into some of the crazy and maybe so crazy they're actually true theories. So let's put on our tinfoil hats and get talking about it.
How much tinfoil?
Lots of
A lot.
tinfoil.
Oh no.
Full roll. Alyssia, why don't you start us off with one of yours?
Sure. So when I've been watching the series and just kind of, there's so many theories out there, but one of the things that I've consistently noticed are just some strange things. I'm sure we've all seen them that make it feel like we're a little bird. We get these bird's eye views of the family and of different conversations. And I feel like there's sort of this unease of maybe they're not alone or they're being watched or some combination of those two things.
Mm-hmm.
And we've talked a lot about what is there to sort of set the tone and set the mood and make us feel uncomfortable purposefully just because that, it's a suspenseful horror genre. And what is there because it's an actual clue trying to kind of give us hints as to what might be really going on. So one of my favorite theories is about this observation and the fact that I think that they're being watched somehow, whether that is through cameras, through sort of eyes, right? People that are coming in and out of there that are able to see certain things and see what's going on and report back to whomever they might be reporting back to, things like that.
Yeah. Sometimes it seems like they're like, I don't know, people creeping around or like, I don't know, like it's hard to pinpoint certain things, but like, there was that one door that closed in the hallway. I forget which episode. Was that episode 7 of season 2?
Goose. That was
right. Yes.
The penultimate to this season's finale.
Yes.
I thought there was one before that then too, though.
Julian's going up the stairs.
Right.
To George.
Oh, right. Okay. All right. Sorry. Yeah, that's right.
Ritual. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a handful of instances of actual people, right? So I think I can list a few of them and feel confident I've got most of them. So we've got, of course, that one, right? Which is, I think I don't know if it was Love Shack or Goose, but we see.
I think it
was Love Shack. And so we see Julian. So this is after, yes, because the episode opens up and we see him going, he's asleep, right? He was asleep in the chair. And I'm a believer that, especially when a show is well done like this, that camera shots can really say a lot about how we're supposed to be interpreting something.
Oh, sure.
And and they do these repetitive camera shots where it's almost like we're leaving and we're backing away, right? And I've got some screenshots of different moments where we see that. And so I think it's really interesting. And in fact, one good example is when the door, I'm trying to remember when it was, we see Sean in the doorway, right? After the door closes and the camera backs all the way out into the street and we get sort of farther and farther away where we're just sort of an observer and we just see his shadow behind the door in the house. So to me, that's one example of one of those moments. And then even in the beginning, in the very, very opening shot, right? We pull up and I know it's just an establishing shot, right? But I still feel like there's this moment of sort of looking at it. And interestingly, and I don't know if I want to look a little more because I like to be confident to say like, oh, I definitely noticed this. But when she pulls up to the house, so one of the things that I've noticed in general is that their door is black or a very, very dark espresso
Right.
With lighter brown around it. But on the very, very first episode of season 1, it actually looks lighter than the others around it. So if looking at Leanne being an infection, I thought that I
Like, is
wondered
that
to
a
myself
progression
if
of the? Oh,
exactly. That's what I was wondering.
That's interesting.
And another shot that really is interesting to me is in the first episode, we're in the kitchen and we don't even see Dorothy and Sean's faces as they talk. We see their hands and we
That's
see
right.
the
Yeah.
wine glass and we don't see them. So it's almost like we're listening in on their conversation.
It's like a distorted.
Right,
Like
exactly.
Or like something like that. Another one that I thought of was in Goose when he's plugging the geese outside. He's like mirror imaged in the door, like the opposite way.
Yes.
Doing that same.
Yeah. And then there's another one of Sean and Julian from above, right? Where they're talking and we're sort of way up high and we see the top of their heads. So there's just a ton of shots like that. And then Liz, you noticed something really great. You noticed that in the season 2 trailer, right? We didn't, I don't think we saw the image during the season, but in the season 2 trailer, there's a moment, and hopefully we can put a screenshot of that at some point or put it somewhere else
so
you guys can see.
We can put it up.
Yeah. It almost looks like there's a camera in the tree, right? It looks the perspective that we're looking at it.
Yeah, I mean, it could just be like a cool shot, artistic, but it definitely looks like a camera is planted in the tree.
Yeah, and everything's distorted, and we're looking, so I think that's really interesting too.
Lens. Yeah, like a fisheye lens.
I wonder.
And then another thing, let's see, there's another one that's really, well, I mean, this one's very obvious, but in the scene in Goose, where Dorothy and Sean are on the stoop, I think she says something like, do you think they're watching us, or something like that?
Could they be testing us? Watching us? It's 3:30.
Don't think about that.
What else am I supposed to think about?
And she just says it outright.
That comes up in episode 9 of season 1, Jericho, when Leanne gets in the car and there's fish in it and she slows up. And Sean comes out to help her, or he's in the house with her, and she's sick in the bathroom, and she says, did anyone record that? Was anyone filming?
It smells something rotten.
I tried to warn you. I had to take those into the city today.
Oh, please tell me no one was filming that.
No one saw. Did you get any on the fish?
That's
weird.
True.
I mean, on the surface, it could be I'm a public figure because I'm on the news. People with their phones these days.
And she's always,
the semi-famous person vomiting in the street. But,
all of these little moments that seem like they could be written off as making sense in the moment, right?
But it also feels like there's like a double, like you could twist it in so many different little ways.
Yeah.
Well, it makes me think of, kind of a signature M. Night thing of, he always has the big twist in the end, or that's what he was known for a while. Especially
he's still doing it.
Yeah. Especially in The Sixth Sense. Spoiler for anyone who's been under a rock.
It's not, I think it's too soon. We'll mark it here.
With Bruce Willis having been dead the whole time, it's very clever if you watch back, knowing the truth.
How about like telegraphs that? Yeah, it's very well done.
If you watch back knowing the truth, all these little moments that may have been a little bit odd, but there could be an explanation for it.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's that odd, uncanny,
This has that same feeling that like
Yeah.
everything is
Right.
like slightly like
There's
where it should
something
be
to
or something
do,
like that.
but once you know the whole truth, the big picture, you can point at those moments and go, "Ah,
hmm
that's what
Mhm.
it meant."
But it
Right.
still kind of works
Mhm.
though because it's so subtle and like
Well, that's the
uh,
point, is that
Right.
there's
Yeah.
always a
Exactly.
way to explain it. Like
I mean, you
Right.
could go
Sense,
back to it, is what I'm saying, and still get
Mhm.
things from it. Like, it's not just a one. Sometimes those things like play out, and it's like, well, I understand it, so that's it. And like, you go back to it, it doesn't have that same feeling. But these, I don't know. It seems not timeless, but it seems more timeless in a way.
well, to go
If that's
back
the right.
to his first big hit, The Sixth Sense.
Right.
I'm going to say that, The Sixth Sense.
Mm.
When there's that restaurant scene where on the surface, it looks like Bruce Willis and his wife are having lunch or dinner together.
Right.
And he says something and she looks up, presumably at him. But if you listen closely, someone had dropped their fork, and that gets her attention and makes her look up.
So I'm gonna go like a little crazier into the theory real fast.
Okay.
But you know, in terms of confirmation bias, right?
Sure.
But and I think I've said this on Reddit too, and I do want to maybe make a list of all the different references, right? But one night I had this moment. I was watching Spaceman, and I may have briefly mentioned this before, but I was watching Spaceman for the third time or fourth time, and I was listening to Julian in his monologue, right, where he's talking about wanting to go into space and going all the way into space. And at the end of that monologue, he says something to the like of, you know, I want to go all the way to the end and I want to bang on the wall. And then I thought maybe there isn't a wall there.
I just wanted to go into space.
Okay.
I mean, deep fucking space. You know, past the icy planets, out of the Milky Way and beyond, you know. I wanted to reach the end and just bang on the fucking wall. Turns out there might not be a wall.
And for whatever reason, my mind thought, I know this. This is something that I'm already familiar with. And it dawned on me that the movie The Truman Show, that's how it ends, right? And I may have talked about it a little bit before, but it ends with him literally banging on a wall and realizing that he could just walk through the door and he could live and he didn't have to be behind it anymore. And so that took me down a very big rabbit hole. And so as I went back and watched that movie, you know, itself, there were all these really interesting camera shots and things that happened that I saw happening, you know, in this show. And I think I feel like there's a lot of various influences, but this one seemed like it could have been one of them, right? So one of the like
shots that connote observation,
right? So one of them too, and this was a fun one, is that in the Truman Show, his like dream place, like if he wants to get out of there, is Fiji, and he brings it up all the time. And Sean and Dorothy have Fiji water, and so Sean pulls out those Fiji waters, and I was like, even that's really interesting, you know, which of course we can always force some, you know, make something fit, but it just sort of, I thought that was interesting.
We're built to recognize patterns.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, no,
and then
it is interesting.
We remember, I don't know, there was that shower scene with Dorothy, I believe, where she hears the pipes and something stops and it's weird and she looks up at it. There's almost an identical shower scene just like that in the Truman Show, where
she looks up right into the camera. She breaks the fourth wall almost.
Exactly. Yeah. And so that was another one. Yeah.
And in the Truman Show, does he look up into the camera?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
And he's trying to figure it out. Yeah. He's like, what's going on? And I was like, oh my gosh, you know, it was like one after the other. You guys, it's a great movie anyway, but you should watch it because I was just like, oh my goodness. I wrote like 3 pages like a crazy person. So that's my tinfoil hat theory.
That's great.